You think your HOA is bad? Try living in Willow Creek Estates, where the grass must be exactly 2.5 inches or the board sends you a fine with a smile. I was minding my own business one warm Friday night when my brother came back to town. Nothing crazy, just a few family members and his buddies for burgers in the garage. Door halfway up for air, music at whisper level, cooler full of soda. Perfectly HOA compliant, or so I thought. Then she appeared. Pamela, or as the neighborhood group chat called her, the Queen Karen. Perfect blonde bob, pastel cardigan buttoned to the throat, clipboard always in hand like it was the Constitution. She stood at the edge of my driveway like a sentinel of beige conformity, eyes narrowing at the open garage like we'd opened a portal to hell. "Ethan," she called in that sickly sweet voice that hid daggers. "Is this gathering approved by community standards?" I smiled politely, wiping my hands on a towel. "Just family, Pamela." Keeping it quiet. Her eyes scanned the guys inside, my brother Ryan's buddies, all in civilian clothes, standing with that quiet discipline I hadn't clocked yet. Multiple adult males. Open garage. This looks like it could turn into quite the atmosphere. She pulled out her phone. The red recording light blinked on. For documentation purposes, of course. Safety first. Folks, she hadn't even heard a raised voice. No one was drunk. They were flipping burgers and talking about the game. But in Pamela's world, any gathering not pre-approved with a permit and color-coded name tags was a potential riot. I'd already been fined $75 last summer for a non-compliant welcome mat that was 2 shades too blue. I'd learned to bite my tongue. But tonight, I just wanted my brother to feel welcome after months away. The covenants clearly state garages are for vehicles, not social events, she continued, voice dripping fake concern. And with that many gentlemen, well, it creates an unsafe atmosphere for our families. I have to protect the community. I kept my tone even. "Pamela, we're on my property. Music's low. We'll be done by 10. No mess, no drama." She smiled, that thin, superior smile that made you want to laugh and scream at the same time. "The rules are there for a reason, Ethan. I didn't make them up. I'm just the one brave enough to enforce them." Then she backed up to the sidewalk, phone still rolling, narrating like a true crime podcast host who'd watched too many episodes. Large group of men. Visible cooler. Possible alcohol present. I feel unsafe. Possible alcohol. The cooler held iced tea and Gatorade. The only danger was someone asking for extra ketchup. Inside the garage, the guys kept chatting, calm, no tension. One of them, Marcus, I think, casually adjusted his stance so he could see the driveway without looking obvious. Another offered to take out the trash before it piled up. Who does that at a party? I told myself I was overthinking. They were just polite. Ryan had said they were training buddies. I figured accountants or something. Pamela wasn't done. She lifted the phone higher, framing my house number like evidence in a murder trial. "I'm calling this in. Someone has to protect this community from whatever this is." She dialed. Not the non-emergency line. 911. I watched her lips move, chin high, free hand gesturing dramatically. "Hello. Yes, there's a suspicious gathering at 142 Oakwood Lane. Multiple men, possibly armed. I feel threatened." They stopped talking when I approached. "They're watching the street." I fear for my life. My stomach dropped. Armed. We were armed with tongs and potato salad. But Pamela wasn't bluffing. This was her moment of glory, the HOA president finally playing hero on a Friday night. The neighbors across the street cracked their doors open. Curtains twitched. Everyone knew Pamela's reputation. The woman who once wrote a formal complaint because someone's holiday lights were 2 days past approved removal date. I stepped toward her, hands visible, voice low. "Pamela, please. It's just burgers." She held up a finger without looking at me. "I'm on the phone with authorities. Do not approach." Then louder into the receiver. "Yes, operator. I'm standing at a safe distance." But they looked coordinated. Dangerous. The guys inside had gone quiet now. Not scared, just aware. Chairs slid back softly. Hands stayed visible. No one moved fast. It was eerie how controlled it felt. I whispered to Ryan, "She's actually doing this." He nodded once. "Let her." Sirens started in the distance, faint but rising. Pamela paced the sidewalk, phone still recording, narrating every breath. "They're quiet now. Which concerns me. That's not normal party behavior. I almost laughed out loud. The blackest laugh you can have when your quiet evening is being turned into a SWAT episode. Here was the self-appointed guardian of 2.5-inch grass, weaponizing 911 because grown men were eating hot dogs. And she thought she was the hero. The sirens grew louder, red and blue lights flickering off perfect lawns that had never seen a single blade out of place. Pamela straightened like she was accepting an Oscar. "They're here," she announced to her phone like a tour guide. "Right here at this house. I mentioned the possibility of weapons. I don't want anyone getting hurt." Weapons. The word hit like a slap. I stood at the garage entrance, hands open, heart hammering but voice steady. I'd learned the hard way. Argue with Pamela, and you get another fine, another email blast to the whole neighborhood painting you as difficult. So I stayed quiet. I'd been quietly collecting screenshots of her past complaints for months. The neighbor whose kid's bike was obstructing visual harmony. The guy fined for leaving his trash can out 12 minutes too long. Tonight she'd gone nuclear, and I was ready to let the system she worshipped eat her alive. 2 patrol cars rolled up, doors opening slow and professional. Officers stepped out, hands near belts, scanning. Pamela practically skipped forward. "That's me. I'm the one who called." Multiple men, open garage, they're being uncooperative. One officer nodded politely, but kept his eyes on the garage. "Everyone inside. Keep your hands where we can see them." Inside, hands rose smoothly, no panic, no complaints. The guys stood like they'd done this drill 1,000 times. Which, of course, they had. The lead officer asked, "Who owns the property?" "Me," I said, stepping forward slowly. "Small family gathering, officer. Burgers, low music." We were just winding down. Pamela jumped in, voice shrill now that cameras were off her phone and real badges were here. They stopped talking the second I approached. Coordinated. That cooler. Who knows what's really in it? The officer held up a hand. "Ma'am, we'll get to you." He peered inside again, then paused. His eyes landed on Marcus. "Wait, Ramirez." Marcus lowered his hands just enough to nod. "Evening, Captain." The second officer stepped closer, squinting. "And that's Lopez?" "Torres." One by one the names clicked. "Off duty." All of them. Every single dangerous man in my garage was a cop who'd just finished a week-long tactical training course. Ryan had invited them because they wanted normal food and zero shop talk. The lead officer reached for his radio. "Dispatch, we have multiple off-duty officers on scene. No threat. Reassessing call." Pamela's face did something beautiful. It froze mid-smug, then cracked like cheap porcelain. "Off-duty what?" "That doesn't change the fact this violates community standards." The officer turned to her slowly, tone flat. "Ma'am, community standards aren't enforced by emergency services. You reported possible weapons and feeling unsafe. We're here. No weapons. No disorder. Just burgers." She sputtered. "But they look dangerous. Quiet. Watching the street." One of the officers, the one who knew Marcus, actually chuckled, a low, tired sound. "Ma'am, we're trained to be aware. Not drunk and disorderly." Pamela's eyes darted around. Neighbors were fully outside now, phones down, watching her unravel. The same people she'd terrorized with fines and courtesy notices were seeing the HOA queen exposed as the neighborhood's biggest drama queen. The senior officer arrived, took one look, and sighed like he'd seen this movie before. "Ms. Whitaker, walk me through exactly what you observed." She launched into her greatest hits. Large group of men, cooler, open garage, silence that felt aggressive. The officer listened, then checked his tablet. "Interesting. This is your 4th 911 call this year. Previous ones, suspicious package that was an Amazon box, loud music that was wind chimes, possible break-in that was your own husband forgetting his keys." Pamela's pastel cardigan suddenly looked 2 sizes too tight. "I was being proactive. Someone has to maintain standards." "Standards," the officer repeated, almost gently, "aren't the same as emergencies. And weaponizing 911 because you don't like a barbecue? That's a problem." The senior officer didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply closed his notebook and looked at Pamela the way you look at a toddler who just colored on the walls with permanent marker. "Ma'am, we're documenting this as a false emergency report. No charges tonight. but future calls from you will be reviewed with this incident in mind. And we'll be forwarding a summary to the HOA board since you referenced your position multiple times. Pamela's mouth opened, closed, opened again. The clipboard trembled in her hands. You can't, I was protecting the neighborhood. The officer gestured at my garage, where the off-duty cops were now calmly putting burgers back on the grill like nothing happened. From what? Hot dogs. A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the neighbors. Not cruel, just relieved. The woman who'd spent years filming their trash cans and measuring their grass had finally measured herself against real authority and come up short. Over the next weeks, the change was deliciously quiet. Pamela's dog-walking route mysteriously avoided my street. HOA emails lost their threatening tone. No more all-caps, violation subject lines. At the next board meeting, her name quietly disappeared from the president's slot. No announcement. No drama. Just gone. Someone whispered she'd stepped down for personal reasons. We all knew the real reason. Her power trip had met its match in a garage full of off-duty cops and one homeowner who'd finally stopped playing her game. I kept the advice the senior officer gave me: document everything. Dates, times, every passive-aggressive email. Turns out paper cuts deeper than any 911 call when the truth is on your side. The neighborhood breathed again. Kids left bikes in driveways without fear of a formal complaint. Garage doors stayed open on warm nights. People waved instead of hiding. The absurd rules were still there. 2.5-inch grass isn't going anywhere, but the enforcer who weaponized them had been neutered by her own hand. And every time I roll up that garage door now, I smile. Not because Pamela lost, though that part is chef's kiss satisfying, but because real authority isn't loud. It isn't a pastel cardigan and a clipboard. It's calm, patient, and backed by facts. When intimidation meets documentation, intimidation always loses. So here's the question that still keeps the group chat buzzing. Was Pamela Whitaker really protecting the neighborhood from danger, or was she just a bored dictator terrified of losing control over 2.5 inches of grass and everyone else's Saturday night? Who was actually in the wrong here? The guy hosting a quiet family barbecue, or the woman who called armed men on off-duty cops because they dared exist without her permission? Drop your verdict below. I'm reading every single one.